Hi, everyone, and welcome to this Sibelius webinar. My name is TJ from Avid. Thank you for joining us. We are so glad to see you all here. I have a tremendous honor of speaking to an excellent guest today. He is an accomplished composer, performer, educator, general, rock star, jazz star, Steven Feifke. Steven, welcome.
Hey TJ, thanks so much, man. How are you? Honored to be here as well.
Hey, we're so excited to talk to you. I'm excited to talk about all things music and creativity and Sibelius. So, thank you for joining us. This is going to be great.
Absolute pleasure. Yeah, man.
Awesome. All right, well, let's go ahead and kick things off here. Stephen, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do. And I think it would probably take far too long for you to list all the things that you have accomplished or worked on. So maybe after telling us who you are, you could just give us a little snippet into the last most recent thing that you worked on.
Man, of course. Yeah, last thing I'd want to do is bore anybody with the whole life story here. So I'll just start with a couple of years ago, born in 1991. No, I'm just kidding. Grew up in Boston, Massachusetts, did a lot of music stuff here growing up. Moved to New York in 2009, went to NYU, and then I kind of stayed in the music scene after school. Ended up getting a master's degree several years later. And I've just been working professionally in the music scene for a long time. I'm a pianist. You might see the piano behind me. But my dream was always to write music full time for a living. And so that's kind of what I do now. I write music for my own groups. I lead two big bands. I lead a trio as well. And I also do a lot of commission-based work for, film and television media. I also do for independent artists and whatnot, recording sessions, concerts, orchestras, big bands, you name it. So really, really blessed, honestly and truly, to be living my dream right now. And that's the short version.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic, Stephen. So you're from Boston. You're from near Avid headquarters. That's a
Oh, I
fun
didn't know that
connection.
Avid headquarters are in Boston. Is that for real?
Burlington. Yeah,
Burlington,
Burlington.
Massachusetts. Get out of town. That's
Yeah,
amazing. I
yeah.
didn't know that.
Gonna have to
All
have
right,
you out to the office pretty soon, Stephen.
let's do it.
Let's do it. Awesome. And again, like I said, it would take too long to list all of the things sequentially. So, what was the last thing that you worked on that you're particularly excited about that you've wrapped up recently?
Well, right now I'm in the process actually of releasing a new album, which is a piano trio album. It's called The Roll of the Rhythm Section, Volume 2. The reason it's called Roll of the Rhythm Section, Volume 2, first of all, in the big band, you've got four main sections. You've got the trumpets, you've got the trombones, you've got the saxophones, and then you've got the rhythm section, which is obviously, as everybody knows, the best of all the sections. And the rhythm section is comprised of the piano, bass, and drums. And in the big band, the role of the rhythm section is mainly to support, rhythmically speaking and harmonically speaking, and provide that bridge between the melody presenters, whether it's a soloist or another group of instruments, and the rhythmic groove. And so we are that bridge. But when we're kind of able to just get into that intimate setting on our own, we can, you know, feature ourselves a little bit more. So the trio on the record features the trio from my big band. It's myself on piano, Dan Chmielinsky is the bass player, and then the drummer's name is Brian Carter. And so and also the reason it's called Volume 2 is because previously there was a Volume 1, as you might imagine. And that's kind of what we've been working on lately. So I'm really excited for that to be out into the world.
That's fantastic. I may or may not have been listening to Roll of the Rhythm Section Volume 1 yesterday as I ran errands and thoroughly enjoyed it. So I think I
Oh,
speak
thanks,
for
DJ.
everyone
I,
when
I
I
appreciate
say,
that, man.
yeah, of course. It was fantastic. We're all excited for Volume 2. That's great. That's great, Stephen. Well, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your musical background, right? How you got started on this path and what the journey was like in your early years and kind of how you found your footing.
So, yeah, I mean, everybody has such unique stories to that end, just about how they started in music and then how they transitioned, the professional world in any case, like to what they do professionally. For me, I was a very shy kid when I was younger. My mom taught me piano, as many kids do. Their parents, one of their parents, like you have a piano lying around the house, the kid shows some affinity towards it. Like that was me just like going over to the piano, like as soon as I could crawl and like, touching it. Like I was just curious about it. And my mom nurtured that, showed me to some great teachers in the Boston area. And, one thing that I always hated was reading music. And hindsight's 2020. I wish I hadn't been so short-sighted, to be completely honest with you. But I just had such a hard time doing the tasks that my teacher would assign to me.
I'm a
And
guitarist, so I can relate to the
yeah, right. I mean, come on, man. Same wavelength here,
yeah.
same frequency. But be that as it may, I went to my teacher one day and I was like, I don't think I want to be doing this anymore. And my teacher told my mom, and my mom said, well, teacher, why don't her name is Susan Capestro, by the way, amazing teacher in the Boston area, and we're still friends today. Like, we just got lunch last week or something like that. Um, she was such an influential person in my life, and part of the reason why is because when I told her that I wanted to quit, the next thing that she did at my next lesson was I sat down at the piano, like, slumped over, being like, oh, my mom's making me be here. And I opened my book to like what I was supposed to practice, which, as I just told you, I didn't. And she said, Steven, close the book. I'm like, interesting. Where is this going? And she says, can you please play for me a waterfall? And I said, what do you mean? She said, I want you to play for me on the piano whatever you think a waterfall sounds like on the piano. And I was like, well, is it like this? And I just, ran my fingers down the length of the piano. And she's like, yeah, that's exactly it. Do that again. And I was like, okay, great. And I had more fun with it the next time. And then she started, asking me more questions. She was like, what happens when the water hits the ground? And I was like, I was like, can I do it? And like crashed my hand on the bottom of the piano. And she's like, what happens to the water droplets after that? And I just like started like going up like this. And I was like maybe 9 or 10 at the time. And, I just got introduced to composition through that manner of communication, where I said the thing about me being shy as a kid for a reason, which is that I honestly communicating with the English language was always kind of nerve wracking for me. And what happened with music is that I found a real voice within myself that I could comfortably share, not just with myself, not just with my family, not just with my friends, but I also became more comfortable on stages. And I did like the talent shows in fifth grade and whatever. I have amazing memories of all of those things. And I didn't realize it then, but what Susan was doing was training me as an improvising composer. And so transitioning into the professional space, I always felt like something was missing from my artistic expression just as a pianist. And once I found out that being a composer, being an arranger, being an orchestrator, and those are three words that we can dive into later together on the call. I know I said I'm not going to bore you guys with the life story or anything like that, but basically, I did feel like something was missing until I found a way of integrating that composition, that written form of the music, into my daily life as a composer. And so in college, I went to NYU. I was always like looking for opportunities for write for various projects on campus, whether it was with my peers and colleagues, my fellow students, or even if it was professors who had recitals coming up. I was just like show up and ask like, hey, like, do you need anything for next time? When I graduated college, I was working for a jingle house in New York City, um, and you know that's kind of how I transitioned into the professional space, just like from my love of the craft and the love of the art into, you know really, when I said I feel very, very blessed to do what I do, I'm not lying. I just feel like this is the true expression of who I am as a human being. And so that's kind of the story there.
Hmm. Wow. That's beautiful. Man, Susan, what an incredible teacher.
The
I want to take
best.
lessons from Susan.
Let's bring her on. We'll go to
That's
Burlington together.
yeah. Wow, that's beautiful, Stephen. I love that. You mentioned not being particularly comfortable communicating and feeling like you could speak through your instrument at times more comfortably than you could through your voice, and that resonates. I think a lot of us who play music feel like we're saying something at our instrument that we can't quite communicate with words. So that's really beautiful. Cool. Was there a moment in your journey? I mean, you have a, I believe that's a Grammy sitting behind you.
Yes, it
Was
is.
there was there a moment in your journey that you felt like you had done it, you had achieved it, you had made it, so to speak? Was there a moment like that for you?
That's a really good question. I haven't thought about it in a while. Um, but I don't think that there is one single moment. And even now, like I know you saw the Grammy behind me, that I won for the best album of the year in the large jazz ensemble category, um, a year ago. And um, at that point in time, everybody was asking me like, "Oh, like, what's next? You've made it, like blah 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 blah." And look, again, it's an amazing achievement that I feel very very grateful and honored for, especially considering that it's a peer voting process through the Recording Academy. Um, and Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I'm actually the youngest person to ever win that award in the category. I don't like those
Wow.
youngest. I don't like those youngest person things because, like, you know, I already feel like I've aged out of it. Is the truth, but it's an honor to be on that list with people like Duke Ellington and Henry Mancini and Quincy
Mm,
Jones and Count Basie. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Christian McBride,
mm,
Maria Schneider. I mean, it's just it's something I never really. I mean, necessarily. I did not want it, but I didn't like want or need it either, if that makes sense.
mm,
And so I started to think about when people were asking me that time, like I was getting interviewed on various TV shows and magazines and newspapers, whatever you know, the circuit was at that time. Um, and people were like, "Did you like you've made it? Like, what's next?" And I started to realize that actually being in the music business, that it's never a single making it moment. You've never just like made it. It's actually a series of continuing to make it over and over and over again. And so you really have to love what you do to keep putting one foot in front of the other.
mm,
Sometimes taking one stair at a time, sometimes taking a whole staircase at a time, and just like pushing yourself to the limit and seeing what you can accomplish by means of just like what you yourself want to do. Because we've all got that, that what I said, and you said it resonated with you. And I'm sure that there are people out there who feel similarly, whether they're professional musicians or whether they're hobbyists or anywhere in between, right? There's a certain thing in music that it is the universal language, right? Without words, you can communicate emotions, you can tell stories, you can connect with people, with
mm,
with others. I mean,
hmm.
come on, it's so beautiful. And
Have a
so
conversation, right? And in a band setting, you're talking to your other musicians.
even just at your own instrument by yourself, no matter what you play, or no matter what music you're writing for that matter, whether you're sitting at the piano or whether you're playing guitar or playing the trumpet, it doesn't really matter whether you're, to me anyway, whether you're doing it on stage or off in a band on your own. For me, what really matters is that you're connecting with yourself in a deeper way, because of that universal language that is music. And
Mm,
so when I say that to do this as a profession, you have to really love what you do. I actually think that, professionally, it's easy to forget how much you love what you do. And that's why I'm bringing all this up. Um, because for me, my North Star of what I want to be doing with my music has always just been to express myself in the way that I couldn't as a kid, through my words with my music. And so for me, that's what making it means.
mm,
And I think, and I hope that that's what it will always mean to me, is just to be able to share my character, more deeply and honestly with myself. And if others listen, then that's also a huge blessing. So that's
hmm.
how I feel about all that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah, thank you, Stephen. That's so great. I feel like we could talk about these types of things for a very long time, but
I know we could.
we are here to talk about Sibelius too. I want to give Sibelius some love. So
Let's do it.
At this point, I have a few more questions for you, particularly about, Sibelius and how it's played a role in your development and your journey. But before we get into those, I think this would be a good time for you to share the screen and talk to us about your workflow and show us an example of a template that you're using, all that good stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, let's do it. So let me share my screen real quick. And
Okay.
what I'm going to be sharing is actually my own template that I've created for big band, but I've also altered it for a ton of different instrumentations such as orchestras and wind ensembles. This is kind of like my go-to template that I build from and that I use in my workflow. And so I think that we're going to make a download link available in the description.
Hmm.
um, so you can feel, if you're watching this, you can feel free to go ahead and grab this. And I'll show you how you can alter it really quickly just before we dive into any workflow type stuff. I'm going to use a shortcut. So this is one of the best shortcuts in Sibelius, but if you hit I on your computer keyboard, and it doesn't matter whether you're on a Mac or a Windows, if you hit I, what's going to pop up is the add or remove instruments dialog box. Okay, so on the left, you're going to see like a ton of instruments to choose from. They're all broken down by category, woodwind, brass, all the way down to like synths and strings and literally everything in between. And on the right, it's going to show you what you've got in your score. And so for me, seeing as this is a big band template, and you can see above here that it says SF big band template, this is, I use the underscore because it always keeps it at the top of my scores folder that way. And you can title this whatever you want after you download it. But it's got voice because sometimes I work with a singer. It's got the reeds, which is alto one and two, tenors one and two, bari sax, but I call them reeds in case I want to use flutes and clarinets. It's got your trumpet section. It's got your trombones. This is like a custom thing that I created called bar numbers. Usually Sibelius, the default big band template keeps them at the bottom. But when you're at a recording session, it can be nice and easy to see them just like in the middle of the page. And so I prefer to keep them there. Um, Guitar, piano, bass, and drums, just like we were talking about, that's that rhythm section down below. And so when you're creating any sort of score, just really quickly, you should always have your reeds at the top. Then you should have your brass section, and then you should have your percussion technically. So piano technically is a percussion instrument, by the way, but in the
Hmm.
big band setting, we put the rhythm section down there. And now if you wanted to add strings, I'll show you how easy this is to add in. You just go to find up here and you type in strings, right? So if I go to the strings folder, it's going to bring me over here with this drop down menu. I just closed it, but it's over here, strings. And then I can basically put in violin one, two, viola, cello, contrabass, for example, if I want all those instruments. If I'm writing for a soloist, I can just use one of those instruments like so, any one of these. And all I'm going to do here, and Sibelius does this automatically, it puts them in the right place. I'm going to select all of those strings instruments and I'm going to click add to score. And you can see it just pops them down below the brass right here. Okay, so I'm going to select all of them. And I'm just going to click move up or down. I'm going to click down until they're at the very bottom because that's where the strings go. So I'll click OK just for now to show you how this works. It's going to ask me if I want to change the layout. I don't for now because I'm just going to reset it in a quick second. But you can see how easy it is to add and subtract instruments on your own as well. Okay, so this template is really customizable. Grab it, download it, and just, you can kind of start writing with it right away. So let me close out those. And now we're back. So here's the template. Um, this key signature that I've written, it says transpose score, but technically I'm actually in concert right now. So I'll just change that to say concert score at the top. This is your part name. This is your title, your composer information, right? So if you're working on a song that you're composing, you'll just insert your name here. If you're working on somebody else's song, maybe you're working on an arrangement of, let's say, I don't know, You Are the Sunshine of My Life.
Hmm.
Right. Let's just put Stevie Wonder there. And, you don't need to bold any of this information. I just bolded it so you can find it easily. You'll put composed by and then arranged by. If there's already an arrangement, maybe Stevie Wonder or producer X already arranged this and you're just orchestrating it,
Hmm.
right? You'll put that information all up here. Okay. But for now, I'm just going to put composed by Steven Feifke because I'll do a little bit of an example in a second. Tempo marking. This is a really, really important thing, right? So in Sibelius, like you can put all this stuff in yourself, by the way, if you go to the text tab and then like the styles drop down menu, like it's really easy to find all this stuff. But over here in tempo marking, right, say I want to write something with swing, right? Swing to me, like that's exciting, sure, but like if I want it to actually be exciting, I'll just add exciting swing. That way, everybody who's playing the music will actually have an adjective to go off of in addition to a tempo descriptor, right? And so one great thing about Sibelius is that as soon as you type in the style, it automatically adjusts the playback so that it swings with it. Or if you're maybe writing like a bossa nova, right? It actually has all of the claves already pre-installed into the system, and so it'll play back properly. I'm gonna make an exciting swing though, because I don't know, that's kind of what I'm already hearing in my head for something right now.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, Now, anything else to show you guys on this page? Oh yeah, copyright information at the bottom. So look, adding your own copyright information at the bottom doesn't make your piece copyrighted. You need to do that in the United States, in any case, through the Library of Congress. But it doesn't hurt to keep it at the bottom. So for example, Steven Feifke, I'm, through BMI, Steven Feifke Music, BMI, and then I'll also usually add a date. Um, Whatever the date is, I can't remember. Okay, so you can just add that in on your own, and then I'll also usually include my website at the bottom here as well, so that if people are reading it, they can find me easily. Okay, so it's just going to say insert your copyright info over here. All right, so now is the tough part. Now is the question of what do we arrange? What do we write? And that's a whole other conversation unto itself. And I do have a master class that I've put online. It's totally free. You can check it out just in terms of like big band writing, kind of my step-by-step process. It's like a 5-step blueprint method that I outline. You can check that out. Maybe we can put a link in the description to that as well. I'm not going to talk about that right now. What I really want to focus on is the writing process as it pertains to Sibelius. So right now, what I'm going to be working with is strictly my mouse and my computer keyboard. I do not have a MIDI device connected, but if you have a MIDI device, evidently it'll probably be like a little quicker for you to get those note inputs, together. Speaking of note inputs, you can check out the note input tab, and it'll give you, these little input devices. That's where you can sync up your MIDI devices. If you have a USB connected or a MIDI device connected, whatever it is, you can click on find new input devices, and it'll show you whatever you've got available. Okay, and so that's how you can make sure what you've got hooked up is actually hooked up. And then over here, it's just got like a ton of different options for, how to input notes, whether it's, straight up inputting notes. If I click on this, you can see really quickly. I want you to actually look down here at the keypad. Check this out. So when I click input notes, look what happens at the keypad. It automatically defaults to a quarter note.
Hmm.
Now, the shortcut here, and this actually could save you a lot of time if you didn't know about this, is that you just go over to the keypad and you can click quarter note, and it's automatically going to click on the input notes up there. So look at the input notes, top left-hand corner. I'm just going to click quarter note, and it automatically changes my notes, my cursor rather,
Yep.
to a blue arrow. And you can see that there's notes in there. My screen is small. I'm zoomed all the way out so that I can see the whole score. But you
Hmm.
know what? Why don't we start with the trumpet? Before we
Perfect.
start writing, just really quickly, I want to show you two more quick shortcuts. They're the letter K and the letter T. Okay, so K is short for key signature. If I click K, you can see that it's brought up the notations menu. Okay, top, uh, what is this called? A bar, search bar, whatever it's called. I don't know. Okay, a composer walks into a search bar. Here we are. It draws up that key signature. Okay, so you might want to decide first and foremost what key you're going to be writing in. For now, I don't know. TJ, pick a key. Pick a key.
Well, I'm a guitarist, so we're going with E major.
We're gonna go with E major. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, I'm gonna alter that by a half step so that the horns can play it well. And
Perfect.
you could use
Perfect.
a capo, okay?
Yeah, that's
um,
true. Okay, that's
so
that's
I'll
great.
export your part a half step down, okay?
Love it.
Just remember the capo. All right. Now the other shortcut I want to show you is the T. Okay, so T is you're just going to hit T on your computer keyboard. It stands for time signature. Okay, so again, notations tab, right? It just pulls it up automatically. This template uses a custom time signature that I've created that beams the notes in the measure in a certain way. So you have access to that immediately. But say you wanted to write something in 3/4. Okay, you can go and click on that right there. Okay. See how easy this is, everybody? It
Mm.
really is so easy. Okay. So this is set up right now for F major, and we're just gonna get started writing. So let's write a little hmm. Oh gosh, now the hard part. What are we gonna actually arrange? Um, how about happy birthday?
Oh, that's a great
Okay,
one.
so
Yeah.
I'm gonna put in a little pickup measure here, okay, because we obviously want to have one, two. I'm gonna do it in 4/4, not in 3/4. Usually happy birthday is like one, two, happy, one, two, three, one, two,
Yeah.
happy. I bet you didn't know that happy birthday was in 3/4. Just kidding. I'm sure a lot of you knew.
I
Okay,
had not thought about it, but yeah, it is.
it
Yeah.
is in 3/4, right? Okay,
I
but
love
if I
that.
want to but if I want to write like a swinging, exciting swing jazz chart in this, maybe I'll keep it in 4/4. Okay, so maybe if I
Mm.
count it off like this, one, two, a one, two, happy birthday to you. Okay, so I'm gonna do it like that. Now, if I count
Yep.
off one, two, a one, two, happy. You can hear that those come in on beat 3 and 4 of the measure. So I'm just gonna head on over to the home tab. I believe it's in the home tab. I'm gonna go scroll over to add. Instead of just clicking the plus button at the top, I'm gonna actually head on to this little arrow below. It's pretty small. Hopefully you can see it on your screen. Just looking close. You can see
Yeah.
that there's an arrow below the add. Just click on that. Add multiple or irregular bars. I'm going to click on that. It's going to open up a menu for me. It's going to say number of bars. I do only want one. It's going to ask you, do I want it the same as the time signature or do I want it to be irregular? And I actually want it to be irregular. So it's going to give me the option to like select a 16th note, a 32nd note, a 16th, eighth, quarter, half, whole note, and then a dot. So if I wanted to like start with a dotted half note or something, a measure that's only 3 beats long, okay, it has that option. I'll show you another shortcut really quickly. I can just press H for half note, and that's going to give me that half note for the irregular measure. Okay, if I'm going to click OK, I'm just going to click it once because you're going to see what happens. My mouse cursor, you see how it's black right now,
Mm-hmm.
just turned blue. Okay,
Yep.
so now I'm going to move that over to just before the first measure. And I'm going to click there, and that's where it's going to add. Wherever I click now, that's where it's going to add the irregular measure. So I'm going to add a pickup measure like this. Okay. Now, see how 4/4 is still here? That's
Mm-hmm.
actually 100% correct. What I'm going to do to make it really clear is that I'm going to just hit the half note bar in the half note button in the keypad, and that brings everything to be a half note. If I wanted to make it really clear, I can just make them quarter notes like so. Okay, that way there's no confusion. Everybody who's reading this, it might not look as clean as having an empty measure like this, but I don't want anybody to be confused reading this if I'm counting off one, two, a one, two, right? And I want everybody to know that we're
Mm-hmm.
coming in on beat 3. The other way to make this really, really clear and obvious, I'm just going to move the playback line really quickly, is I can select this first measure and I'm going to head on into the notations tab and I'm going to hit bar line and I'm going to hit double. Okay. And this makes it really clear that this is a pickup measure. I'm going to move over these alto, alto, tenor, tenor, bari to this first line right here, like so. Looks like I'm going to have to reset that quarter note. No problem. Can do. I like to have 8 measures on a page. So I'm just going to move this over by selecting the bar line. This is a shortcut as well. I'm just going to hit return or on a Mac, enter on a PC, and it moves the other bar line over. Okay. It just works exactly like you would if you're writing in Microsoft Word or something like that. All right. So now I've got these quarter notes happening. I've got, my voice is even ready to go. I'm not going to actually write this for a voice though. Let's have the band sing happy birthday to the singer. Let's say it's the singer's birthday. All right. So title
Perfect.
here, happy birthday. Okay. Composed by, I think we can just say folk song here. And then I'll say arranged and orchestrated by
Mm-hmm.
Steven Feifke. So remember when I said that we were going to talk about those words arrangement and orchestration a little bit later on.
Mm-hmm.
So Arrangement means, well, first of all, let's talk about a composition. A composition is basically a combination of melody, harmony, and rhythm. I actually think about it hierarchically as rhythm and then melody and then harmony. It's basically an original combination of those three musical elements. That's called the musical DNA. And the arrangement is where we, as the arrangers, as the artists, will take those elements of the music and then we'll restructure them to however we want to restructure them, right? So, for example, I'll tell you what I did for this first swinging version of Happy Birthday. My arrangement, it's not in 3/4. What time signature is it in? It's in 4/4, right? So that's a really small change, or so it would seem, but it actually changes the entire character of the piece, right? So the higher up
Hmm.
on that hierarchical ladder that you make a change, the more it's going to impact the rest of your arrangement. Okay, so again, I dive really deep into this on that masterclass that I mentioned. You can check that out if you want to, but that's basically the crux of it. Okay, now orchestration is the last step of the process. And orchestration is basically the process of defining which instruments are going to play which notes, which registers of their instruments are they going to play them in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So for this, I'm going to orchestrate Happy Birthday, my swinging version of Happy Birthday, my arrangement of Happy Birthday in the swing style. I'm going to orchestrate it for the full big band. I'm going to write some tutti voicings. Okay, so tutti is Italian for everybody, and it just means everybody plays all together. All
Hmm.
right, so first thing I'm going to do is I've got this melody sitting in my head now. I've had it sitting in my head for the past couple of minutes, ever since I said happy birthday. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to put that into the trumpet, lead trumpet. Okay, because the trumpet, that's the loudest note, and that's the loudest instrument in the ensemble.
Yeah.
That's the one that's going to carry the melody for now. So you can see here, I've just made the keypad a little bit bigger. You can do this as well. Like if you see over here, you probably won't have this little like person plus that just means I'm screen sharing. Okay, so if you don't see that
Hmm.
on your screen, totally fine. You'll see this arrow come. You can make this dialog box larger, smaller, whatever you want, whatever works for you. And if you're working off of not a laptop, but if you're working off of a regular computer keyboard, this actually uh, corresponds to the keypad on the far right of your keyboard. Okay, so this is the number 7. This is the number 8. This is the number 9, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 0. I think this is enter. So tons of stuff in there for you to explore as well. Okay. Um, for now, as I mentioned before, I am on a laptop. I don't have any of those shortcuts, and I'm able to write just fine anyway. So even if you don't have them, it's totally okay. This is, one of the things that I love about Sibelius is just how easy it is to use. So
Hmm.
let's get in here, starting with some quarter notes. And I'm going to tell you guys right off the bat, when I write a melody, I don't want to just write a melody with the notes. I'm also going to use articulation markings. And so this one is called a marcato. It just means like short and fat. And when the trumpet player sees this, they're going to want to know what dynamic marking they're going to be playing at. And I'm going to put them at a mezzo forte. Okay. And now I'm even thinking more along the lines of what rhythm is going to accompany this. Okay. So I'm thinking about kind of a New Orleans beat here. I'm thinking about like honestly, if I had a tuba, I would use a tuba here, but we've only got a bass trombone. And you know what? Bass trombone is totally fine. In the New Orleans, language, what the bass trombone would be playing or the tuba would be going boom, 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 boom. Can you guys hear that in your heads? Okay, so that's kind of what I'm hearing
Yeah.
right now. So what I do when I'm writing is I just kind of go with wherever the spirit takes me. And so right now it's taking me towards that bass trombone part. And I'm going to outline the chord changes with that bass line that I just heard in my head. Okay, so that's going to go all the way down here. And I'm just I might forget to outline exactly what I'm doing. So TJ, if you want to, shout any questions my direction as I'm going, feel
Sure.
free. But what I'm doing right now is I'm selecting a rest and I'm just gonna change it from a quarter note rest to an eighth note rest by clicking the eighth note button on the
Hmm.
keypad. Okay. Now I'm gonna add an accent there so that the guy or the person knows to really like dig into this note. And I'm gonna
Yep.
even add a little bit of a scoop. So if I open, you can see here like at the top of the keypad, there's all these sub menus.
Hmm.
So you should familiarize yourself like as you go. Don't feel the need to familiarize yourself with this just for the sake of familiarizing yourself with it, but you can like check out what's in there. Okay, so this one with it's called a repeat measure sign. It looks like the shorthand name for it. And this is Bailey's dialogue is jazz articulations. You can have non-jazz instruments scoop and fall and all that stuff, but I'm gonna have him scoop in for now. And I'm gonna also, before I forget, add in a dynamic marking. Mezzo forte, that's kind of how like you and I are talking right now. It's very normal. It's very, just like I'm not pushing my voice. It's just very comfortable. So,
Mm-hmm.
if I want to say like piano, right? This is really quiet. Mezzo piano is like a careful quiet, right? It's like I'm at a dinner party and I want to tell somebody next to me something that's really important that I don't necessarily care if other people hear, but I don't want them to
Sure.
hear off the right. So that's mezzo piano. Forte is like really loud and powerful. And I don't know if Zoom's going to let me do this, but fortissimo is really the loudest version of your voice that you have. Okay, without actually shouting. All right, so excuse me. I'm back
That's
to
quite all
normal.
right. No.
This is mezzo forte over here. All right, and so here I'm gonna have boom, boy, da, and I'm just singing along so that I can really outline like what I'm hearing in the melody in terms of the note lengths. Bob,
Mm-hmm.
boy, da, bob, boy, dee, right? So I'm hearing this again. Check out how easy this is. I can select this measure, another shortcut, hit R, and it's just going to repeat that same measure over again. Okay, so musically, this is a theory thing, but you do not need to repeat dynamic markings. Okay, so I can
Mm-hmm.
just delete that, select it, and hit delete on my keyboard. It's really, really easy.
Mm-hmm.
Happy birthday to. Okay, and now check out how easy this is. The next chord is C. All right, I want you to take my word for it for now, okay? But
I
the
believe
chord
you.
changes for happy birthday go 1 1 5
Yeah.
5 1. Okay, something like this. Happy birthday to C is the 5 of F. I'm going to hit R, and then I'm just going to hit the arrow on my keyboard down 4 steps. Okay. Good rule of thumb, by the way, is that I don't want to jump more than an octave necessarily. For any instrument, maybe like saxophones can do it, and
Mm,
bass and trombones, they should be fine as well, especially when you get into the professional world. But, you just don't need to push that hard. And this is
sure.
comfortable for everybody. Okay. So here's happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to. So a lot of C's here. You can see how easy this is, right? To
Yep.
you. And now the next, I'm going to add another measure here. I can either go to that home tab and then click add bars, or I can use another shortcut, which on a Mac is Command B, on a PC is Control B. And it just adds measures, the same time signature as the home time signature at the end of your score. So check it out. Command, I'm going to hit B and you're going to watch what happens. It's going to create another measure, another page like this. Okay, and it's going to highlight it in purple. That's normal. I'm just going to create a bunch of extra measures for now. All right. That's going to create way more measures than I need, but it's totally fine. Okay, I'll show you how to
Mm-hmm.
delete those too. Next chord is F7. Happy birthday, dear DJ. I don't know when your birthday is, but we'll pretend. Okay, and so all of this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a wonderful birthday composition I'm getting very early. The bar has been raised for my birthday presents this
Yeah,
year.
no pun intended. All right. So, I'm right now up till this point, TJ's birthday song has only been using diatonic notes. This E natural here, I'm actually gonna need to change to an E flat. So all I do is I go over to the keypad and then I select the note that I want to apply this to, and I hit the flat button and it changes it.
Mm,
Okay. I'm just gonna pause there for now. I'll come back to this as we go. I'm gonna continue on with this melody. Happy birthday. I'm just gonna write really quickly for a quick second.
sure. Yeah.
Birthday. Cool.
Yep.
I'm gonna select all this. I'm gonna hit repeat again. R.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna change these last two notes because the melody changes. Okay. See how easy this is, everybody?
Yeah. So fast too, right? We're flying through this.
Yeah. Now, if it highlights it in red, if Sibelius highlights a note in red, it means it's out of the normal range of the instruments, and
Uh-huh.
that's totally okay. Professional landscape like this should be totally fine for
We
for
got
even
some
high school students. This is just a whole step outside of the range. So,
we've
you
got
know,
some very good trumpet players hired to play on my birthday record. So it's okay.
for sure, for sure. And I'm gonna make the rhythm of this one slightly different. I might go back and change this a little bit. Birthday, dear TJ. We'll make that a little bit shorthand. TJ, TJ. I'm gonna add accents to both of these. I'm gonna give a rest here for the first two beats. I'm using shorthand here, so to move this up, I just clicked Command and up arrow, moved it up an octave. And I'll make these kind of like short and fat as well, with nice rests in between. Happy birthday. Maybe that one's long, actually. I was going to change it. Hmm. Birth, happy birthday. I think I'm hearing this actually slightly differently than that. So I'm just going to reset this. Day. I'm hearing maybe like a little end to this line, like a kind of like a jazz, like a bebop thing. Happy birthday, ba-doo-doo-dee-doo-dee-doo,
Mm,
ba-doo-doo-dee-doo-doo.
yeah.
You birthday, one, ba-doo-ba-dee-doo-dee-doo-doo. This is an eighth note. And I'm gonna add a little rhythm at the end here, like so. Be da da da. And we'll end short. So this is gonna just be the
Hmm.
lead trumpet player of TJ's birthday dreams on this gig.
He's
To
very
delete
good.
all the extra measures that I don't need, I'm gonna click the first one. I've zoomed out, by the way, just by pinching on my trackpad. If you have just a regular mouse, you can scroll down here to zoom in and out.
Hmm.
Okay, so I'm gonna command click on a Mac, control click on a PC, command click, highlights it in purple, move my cursor to the last measure that I want to delete, hold, press shift, and then click that last measure, and then hit delete. And it removes the measures from the score. You got to
Mm,
make sure that it's highlighted in purple for that to work.
yeah.
Okay. Otherwise, it's just gonna, if it highlights it in blue, you're just gonna remove the music on that stand, on that page. Okay.
Man, fantastic.
So now let's I think I'm gonna break away from this bass line here. And I'm gonna just write some chord voicing. So I'm just putting in the roots that I know that I'm going to want to use. This is just going to be a 3 6 2 5 here at the end, like so. Is that true? Yes, it is true. Mm, mm. I like to sing as I go. You can probably hear.
Yeah,
Now you
no,
can
it,
see I
it
put in this
it's
rhythm here. I'm going to just move this down to the bass. I'm going to assign different bass notes here. Da, 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 like so. Okay,
hmm.
so now I've got my counterpoint in. So check out how this sounds just on its own, everybody.
Okay.
And then we'll work
Okay.
on harmonizing this. Okay, so one really quick change is that I don't think I like this E flat here. Plus, check it out, it's more than an octave, so it might just be a little
Mm,
tricky for some folks.
okay. Okay.
Not that that should ever limit you from what you want to write, but I'll just make this go to E flat, B flat minor instead of E flat 7.
This
So
is
now,
fantastic. It strikes me here, Stephen, that you have no piano in front of you. You're using your voice and your laptop essentially as an instrument, right? Sibelius is kind of
exactly,
acting
it
as
becomes your
your
instrument.
instrument. Yeah. This is so cool. Yeah, I could watch this all day. We have a few minutes left and I have a few more, Sibelius questions that I would love to ask you about, but this is
Hit me,
unbelievable. This is great. Yeah.
hit me.
Um, yeah. Well, okay. So first of all, thank you for this. This is so fantastic. It's fascinating to watch you work. I do want to know, obviously this you've explained the workflow. You've told us about how Sibelius is easy and it makes sense and it's self-explanatory in a lot of ways. But I know as a musician, it's important to find the right tool for your journey, right? For me, it's Pro Tools has been my lifelong companion. Um, why did you initially choose Sibelius as your tool for this journey, and what makes it special to you other than, maybe other than the things that we have gone over?
Yeah, for sure. And Pro Tools is great, by the way, as well. For me, the reason that I started, I just started off with Sibelius because that's what was at my high school. When I was going to school, the high school had copies of Sibelius on the school computers, and I just started using it. And right off the bat, it was just easy for me to use. Truly, 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 it was just really like it is for me now. Now I know a lot more like shortcuts and stuff in the program, but even without all those shortcuts, even as a kid, like, like however old I was, maybe like 14, 15 years old when I started using Sibelius, I just always found it easy to input notes. And at the end of the day, like
Mm,
as a composer, um, and at that point, like I wouldn't have called myself a composer. I was just, enjoying writing music. And so that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to write music. And because there were no barriers for me in between the music in my head and the computer, whether or not I was able to like make it look super pretty at that point in time or not, the fact of the matter was that I could get the notes out of my head and onto the page with relative ease. And so, in that sense, in that regard, that's Sibelius for me in a nutshell. It's always been, you know, what I've used. I'll be
hmm
completely honest with you, TJ. When I moved to New York, a lot of people tried to show me Finale and ask me like, hey, like, have you ever tried Finale? Like, maybe you should consider using Finale. And so I said, okay, sure, let me try it out. And I just never had that same sense of ease with the software as I do with Sibelius.
mm,
And the truth is that I was always able to get my scores to look like, $1 million with the engraving stuff that's in there, to the point that people would say like, oh man, like maybe I should, they would say to me after I would pass out my parts, they would say like, oh man, maybe I should I've been using Sibelius, but maybe I should learn how to use Finale. And I would
mm,
say to, because there's just like in New York anyway, there's this like the stigma about, I don't know, it's not a stigma necessarily, but it's amongst composers, there's just like always been this battle of Finale, Sibelius, Sibelius,
mm,
Finale. And so I would say to them, whether it's a Sibelius user or Finale, oh man, actually, like I use Sibelius exclusively. They're like, wow, really? Like you can make your parts look like this in Sibelius? And the reason that that's an important conversational topic, and I mean, we're getting so nerdy here, TJ.
I'm
Um,
so here for it, Steven.
right.
This is you're speaking my language.
Yeah, nice, man. Like once you get past the ease of the note input, like the next step, like in the professional world, is that you want your parts to look pristine and like really feel like you've, engraved them to the point where they could go in a book if you want to, right? Or that you could like publish them for that matter. And so with Sibelius, the truth is that your parts will look at that highest level as well. And so in the professional world, you need to be able to do like really two things. Number one, you need to be able to write the notes that, tell your story, or in, the case that you're hired by somebody else, like tell your story in the client's vision as well. And then the second part is that, we're not writing music so that it sounds good on the computer, right? And so it needs to, in addition to being like voiced and harmonized and orchestrated in a professional, lush way, you also need to be able to present the parts in that professional written landscape as well. And so at the highest level of this professionally, like that's the other part of it, is just being able to engrave in that, and engrave, that
hmm
it's just a fancy way of saying
Yeah,
like look really pretty.
it's
So
important. Absolutely. And I know in addition to being a composer and an instrumentalist, I know that you're an educator as well. Um, have you used Sibelius with your students? How has that worked for you in the classroom?
So I used to teach at Berklee College of Music in Boston.
Hmm
Um, Taught there for 2 years. I also taught at the New School in New York City. And in addition to those schools, I also teach. I have kind of like a mentorship program of my own online in writing for large ensemble music.
hmm
Um,
And you've just taught me a whole bunch about Sibelius on this presentation.
well, man, it was your birthday after all, so
It's again the combination of the master class plus the original composition. Truly, yeah, best present ever
awesome, man. We'll party it up in Burlington
in
soon enough, I'm
Burlington.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
Burlington, Mass. That's where everybody goes to party, right?
that's right. Yeah,
Um,
it's true.
yeah. So teaching. with Sibelius, I mean, even if my students used a different software, I could always, you know, it wasn't perfect all like right off the bat with, it's called an XML file. Sibelius talks to all the other softwares. So you can export a special file from Finale, from MuseScore, from Dorico and open it up in Sibelius. And that's totally fine. And so I could at least read the notes that my students would write. But it's obviously way easier when it comes from and is sent to another Sibelius user. Um,
Mm.
and yeah, and in that sense, Sibelius is it hasn't stopped me ever from from teaching, and I think that my
Hmm.
students in some cases have even switched over from using other softwares to use Sibelius because they've seen how easy it is for me to use that software as well.
Hmm. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. Um, Stephen, thank you again. This has been so great. We have a few minutes left, and I want to just know before we wrap up, for the folks who have joined us here, folks that want to follow what you're doing and be a part of your journey. You mentioned you have a new album that you're working on, but what are some other ways that we can kind of follow you, keep track of what you're doing, and give us one more thing to look forward to that you've got in the pipeline?
Man, I'll be completely honest with you, TJ, and to anybody watching this right now. First of all, thank you so much for being here and for checking out this class and this conversation. I hope that the Sibelius nerdiness was at the appropriate level of, not the Papa Bear too hot, not the Mama Bear too cold, but just the right amount of nerdiness. Okay. I'll be like, look, sharing from the heart right now, the thing that will make me the happiest is if you just write more music, if you
Mm,
just get into Sibelius, and just write, because man, when you write music, it's a way of having a conversation simultaneously with the past, present, and the future all at once, right? When you write music, you're basically expressing a version of yourself that is the combination of all of your past up until this point in time. And when you write it down, you're basically preserving it forever. And so you yourself can revisit that, say in like a year's time. So even if you just have an idea for like a simple melody, right? Even if you just have an idea for like a simple set of chord changes that you come up with, maybe whatever it is, right? When you have that kind of an idea and you sit down at the computer, when you sit down at your instrument and you want to say to yourself, you know what, this I like this. Like let me capture this on the page, right? Because it's one thing to like record a voice memo and then you have the voice memo, but then sometimes you can't remember exactly like what the notes you were playing were. But if you write it into Sibelius, or just write it down in some way, then you have a way of revisiting it, and so your future self will be able to talk to your past self. And you know when I would I'm going to go a little bit nerdier here. I don't know whether we're going into the hotter or colder direction, okay, but just go with me on this. When I was at school, I was in the library constantly, and I was in the books constantly. And you know for me, reading the scores of Bach and Beethoven, I had this realization that if they hadn't written their music, and this sounds so obvious when you say it out loud, but if they hadn't written their music, I and others would not be able to check out their music now. We would have nothing to go
mm,
by, right?
yeah.
Especially in that time, there was no recorded music, right? So all we have to go on is the written scores. And so that's kind of what I mean by a conversation with the past, present, and the future all at once.
Hmm.
And writing music, it's my passion, it's my life, and whatever part of your life it is, just go for it, just do it. It's really just such a beautiful exploration, and don't let anything hold you back. that's that's the best thing I got. You can follow,
Yeah.
like, we're going to put some links in the description, you can check them out if you want to, but really what'll make me the most happy is if you just go ahead and write some music of your own.
Yeah. 100%. Well, hey, I'm on board. I promise you that I will work on some music tonight. I'm inspired. If you checked out this presentation, I hope you're feeling inspired too. Steven said it, so go to avid.com/Sibelius. Check out what we've got. Check out some of the improvements that we've been making to the software. It's really, really exciting. Make sure that you spend some time in there. And most importantly, go make some music. Stephen, thank you again so much for joining us. This has been a fantastic conversation. Thanks to everyone else who has joined and is watching. We really appreciate your time, Stephen. We really appreciate your time, everyone who joined, and we'll be sure to catch you guys on the next one.
Awesome, TJ, thank you very much. Take care,
Okay.
everybody.
All right. Bye bye.